My husband left for my coworker, leaving me and my son broke. A vacation. In Italy, forever changed my life. I never thought I'd be typing this out, especially here, but I guess life really throws you curveballs when you least expect it. Just 3 months ago, I was still married. Happily, I thought, to the love of my life, the father of my son, Ben. We had our ups and downs, sure, who doesn't? But nothing prepared me for the bombshell he dropped on me one evening after dinner. "Anna, I'm sorry, but I've fallen in love with someone else," he said, without even a tremor in his voice. The someone else was Lara, a woman he worked with, someone I had invited to our home for dinner, whose son had playdates with ours. The betrayal cut deep, not just because he left, but because he unraveled our entire life with such ease. In the weeks that followed, I struggled to keep it together. I had to, for Ben. He was only 7, too young to fully grasp why his dad had suddenly moved out and why his mom cried when she thought he wasn't looking. The divorce was swift. Tom made sure of it. Before I knew what was happening, I was signing papers I barely read, nodding along as my soon-to-be ex-husband explained how this would be better for everyone. Financially, he left us hanging by a thread. All our savings had been in a joint account, and Tom drained it for his new life with Lara. He left enough to cover a month of expenses, but beyond that, it was all up in the air. I had been a stay-at-home mom for most of Ben's life, and suddenly, I was on the brink of financial ruin. In the midst of this chaos, my best friend, Mia, insisted I keep our plans to travel to Italy. We had booked this trip a year ago, a dream vacation that was supposed to be a celebration of my 10th wedding anniversary. The irony wasn't lost on me. Mia argued that the trip was already paid for, and frankly, she thought it would do me good to get away from the mess my life had become. After much hesitation, I agreed. Maybe a change of scenery was exactly what Ben and I needed to start healing. So there we were, bags packed, standing at the airport, about to board a flight to Italy. Ben clung to my hand, his little face full of both excitement and confusion. As we walked through the gate, I looked back one last time, half expecting Tom to come running, apologizing, asking us to be a family again. But there was no one there, just an empty corridor filled with the echoes of what used to be my life. As the plane took off, I pressed my forehead against the window, watching the ground slip away. I wondered if I was also leaving behind the last pieces of a broken heart, or if they were coming with us, tucked away in our luggage, just as heavy, just as painful. The flight was long and weary, but the moment we stepped off the plane and into the Italian sunshine, something inside me stirred, a flicker of hope, maybe, or just the thrill of being somewhere entirely new. The airport was bustling with people from all corners of the world, and as I navigated through the crowd with Ben's hand in mine, I felt a small sense of adventure creeping in. We took a taxi to our hotel, which was nestled on the outskirts of a quaint coastal town. The landscape was breathtaking, rolling hills dotted with olive trees, the sea sparkling under the sun like a blanket of diamonds. It was picture perfect, the kind of scenery you'd see on a postcard and think, no place can really look like that. But it did. The hotel itself was a beautiful old villa that had been converted into a boutique hotel. It was charming, with ivy crawling up its stone walls and colorful flowers in full bloom everywhere you looked. As we walked up to the reception, I was already feeling lighter, like I could breathe a little easier here. The owner of the hotel, Marco, was the one who checked us in. He was a tall man, perhaps in his late 30s, with a warm smile and an ease about him that made you feel instantly welcome. His eyes lingered on me a little longer than necessary, and I felt a blush creep up my cheeks, my first in what felt like ages. "Welcome to Villa Mere," he said, his voice smooth with a thick Italian accent. "I hope you find peace and joy during your stay here." Hi's words, simple yet sincere, struck a chord in me. Maybe it was the way he looked at me, like he saw the pain I was carrying and wished he could take it away, or maybe it was just the kindness in his eyes. Either way, I thanked him, perhaps too eagerly, and he gave me a knowing smile. We settled into our room, which was as charming as the rest of the hotel, with a view of the sea that was absolutely stunning. Ben was thrilled, running around and checking out every nook and cranny with the excitement only a child can have. Watching him, I felt a surge of relief. At least one of us could enjoy this trip without reservations. That evening, we had dinner at the hotel's rooftop restaurant. The sky was a canvas of oranges and pinks as the sun set over the sea. The food was delicious. Fresh seafood, ripe tomatoes, pasta that melted in your mouth. It was our first real meal since the chaos back home, and I savored every bite, allowing myself to enjoy the moment, however brief it might be. Later, as Ben and I walked along the beach, the last light of day fading into twilight, I allowed myself to truly feel the beauty of our surroundings. The waves lapped gently at the shore, a soothing rhythm that calmed my frayed nerves. I thought about Marco's words, finding peace and joy, and wondered if, maybe, this place could help heal my wounded heart. But life, as I had learned all too well, was unpredictable. The very next day, as Ben played by the pool, a simple slip led to a fall, and suddenly, we were rushing to the hospital, my heart in my throat, the fear of what the future held once again taking hold. It happened so fast, it was like a scene from a nightmare unfolding in front of my eyes. One moment, Ben was splashing happily in the pool, his laughter echoing in the air, and the next, he was on the ground, clutching his arm in pain, tears streaming down his face. I rushed to his side, my heart pounding in my chest, panic threatening to consume me. "Ben, sweetheart, what happened?" I asked, my voice trembling as I tried to assess the situation. Through his sobs, Ben managed to choke out, "I slipped, Mommy. It hurts." I felt a surge of adrenaline course through me as I scooped him up in my arms, ignoring the concerned looks of the other guests around us. "It's okay, baby. Mommy's here. We'll get you fixed up, I promise," I whispered, my voice barely audible over his cries. With trembling hands, I flagged down a hotel staff member who called for an ambulance. The minutes that followed were a blur of activity. Paramedics arriving, questions being asked, forms being filled out. All the while, Ben clung to me, his pain palpable, his fear mirroring my own. We were rushed to the nearest hospital, where Ben was quickly examined and diagnosed with a broken arm. As Ben lay in the hospital bed, his arm wrapped in a temporary cast, the reality of our situation began to sink in. The doctor explained that Ben would need surgery to properly set the bone, followed by weeks of recovery and physical therapy. It was a daunting prospect, made even more daunting by the astronomical cost of medical care in a foreign country. In a moment of desperation, I reached for my phone and dialed the emergency number, hoping against hope that our insurance would cover the cost of the ambulance and hospital stay. But as the call connected, and I explained our situation to the operator, a sinking feeling settled in the pit of my stomach. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but your insurance doesn't cover international medical expenses," the operator said apologetically. "You'll have to pay out of pocket for the ambulance and hospital stay." The words hit me like a ton of bricks, leaving me reeling with shock and disbelief. How could this be happening? How could something as simple as a slip by the pool lead to financial ruin? But there was no time to dwell on the unfairness of it all. Ben needed medical attention, and it was up to me to find a way to pay for it, no matter the cost. With trembling hands, I signed the necessary paperwork and watched as Ben was wheeled into surgery, my heart heavy with worry and uncertainty. And as the hours dragged on, each one feeling like an eternity, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that I had failed my son, that I had let him down when he needed me most. But there was no time for self-pity, no time for regrets. I had a son to take care of, a medical bill to pay, and I refused to let anything stand in the way of getting him the help he needed. Hours later, as I sat by Ben's bedside, watching him sleep fitfully, a wave of despair washed over me. How had my life come to this? Divorced, broke, and now with a child in the hospital, facing a mountain of debt I couldn't begin to climb. I felt utterly alone, the weight of my responsibilities crushing me like a ton of bricks. Desperate for help, I reached for my phone and dialed the one person I thought might still care, Tom, my ex-husband. But before I could even get a word out, his new girlfriend Laura answered, her voice dripping with venom. "What do you want, Anna?" she spat, her words like daggers aimed straight at my heart. "In hospital? What, caught a cold again? Listen, we have no obligation to help you beyond the alimony you have already got from my dear Tom. Now you demand thousands again? You've found money for the trip, right? Do so now for the hospital or whatever. And don't bother calling here again." I felt as though I had been punched in the gut, the air leaving my lungs in a rush. How could they be so cruel, so heartless? Didn't they understand that Ben was their son too, that he needed their help now more than ever? But there was no reasoning with them, no pleading or begging that would change their minds. In their eyes, I was nothing but a burden, a reminder of a past they were eager to forget. And so, with a heavy heart and tears streaming down my face, I hung up the phone, feeling more alone than ever before. It was then that Marco appeared, his presence a beacon of hope in my darkest hour. He had heard about Ben's accident and had come to offer his assistance, knowing that I wasn't fluent in Italian, his concern genuine and unwavering. He listened to everything I had to say, not much as I was shocked and frustrated, and offered words of comfort and support when I needed them most. Then he went to talk to the doctors, while I followed his driver to the car and waited. The fresh air felt so good after the stuffing air of hopelessness in the hospital. He returned shortly, confirming that I understood the doctor's right and really had to pay a huge bill. "Anna," he said quietly, his voice filled with compassion. "I couldn't help but overhear what happened with your ex-husband. I'm so sorry you're going through this." I nodded, unable to find the words to express the depth of my gratitude. Marco had been a constant source of support since we arrived in Italy, a reassuring presence in a world that felt increasingly unfamiliar and hostile. "And I want to help," he continued, his gaze steady and unwavering. "My mother owns a clothing shop here in town. Well, let's just say she has a bit of a temper, but she's always looking for reliable help, and I think you could be just what she needs." I hesitated, uncertainty gnawing at the edges of my mind. The idea of working for Marco's mother was daunting enough on its own, but the thought of facing her legendary temper sent a shiver down my spine. I had heard the stories, the employees who had lasted no more than a week before fleeing in terror, the customers who had dared to cross her and lived to regret it. But desperate times called for desperate measures, and I knew that I couldn't afford to turn down an opportunity like this, not when Ben's medical bills were mounting by the minute. With a deep breath, I squared my shoulders and met Marco's gaze head-on. "I'll do it," I said firmly, my voice trembling slightly with nerves. "I'll work for your mother, no matter what it takes." Marco nodded, his expression one of quiet determination. "Good," he said simply. "I'll talk to her and set up a meeting. Don't worry, Anna. We'll get through this together." With a grateful heart, I accepted his offer, knowing that it was the only way I could provide for my son in his time of need. And as I watched Ben sleep, his broken arm cradled gently in a sling, I made a silent vow to do whatever it took to keep him safe and cared for, no matter the cost. Working in Marco's mother's clothing shop turned out to be both a blessing and a challenge. From the moment I stepped through the door, I could feel the tension thick in the air. Signora Bianchi, Marco's mother, was a formidable woman, sharp-tongued and no-nonsense, with a glare that could cut through steel. At first, she eyed me with suspicion, as if I were some interloper invading her territory. I couldn't blame her. I was an outsider, a stranger in a strange land, trying to find my footing in a world that was entirely new to me. But Marco had vouched for me, and slowly, begrudgingly, Signora Bianchi allowed me to prove myself. The days were long and grueling, filled with endless tasks and demands that seemed to change on a whim. I worked tirelessly, pushing myself to the limit, determined to prove that I was capable, that I belonged here as much as anyone else. And slowly, bit by bit, I started to earn Signora Bianchi's respect. It wasn't easy, though. There were times when her sharp tongue cut deep, when her criticisms felt like a dagger to the heart. But I refused to let her break me, refused to let her see the doubt and insecurity that lurked beneath the surface. I held my head high, chin up, shoulders back, and met her challenges head-on, determined to show her that I was made of tougher stuff than she gave me credit for. And gradually, something shifted between us. Maybe it was the long hours we spent together, side by side, sorting through racks of clothes and folding them with precision. Maybe it was the shared moments of laughter and camaraderie, the small victories we celebrated together. Or maybe it was simply the passage of time. As the weeks went by, I found myself settling into a rhythm, finding my place in this new world. I grew more confident in my abilities, more comfortable in my own skin. And through it all, Marco was there, a steady presence by my side, offering encouragement and support when I needed it most. But even as I found my footing at work, the specter of my past still loomed large in the back of my mind. Tom's betrayal, Lara's cruelty, they were wounds that refused to heal, scars that served as a constant reminder of the pain I had endured. And as much as I tried to push them aside, to focus on the present and the future, they were always there, lurking in the shadows, waiting to pounce when I least expected it. But I refused to let them define me, refused to let them hold me back. I had come too far, fought too hard, to let the ghosts of my past dictate my future. And so, with each passing day, I made a conscious choice to let go of the pain and anger that had consumed me for so long, to embrace the possibility of a new beginning, a fresh start. And as I looked out at the world stretching out before me, bathed in the golden light of the Italian sun, I couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope stirring deep within my soul. Maybe, just maybe, there was light at the end of the tunnel after all. And with Marco by my side, anything seemed possible. Just when I started to believe that maybe, just maybe, things were looking up, life decided to throw me another curveball. It happened one afternoon, as I was helping Signora Bianchi with a new shipment of clothes, folding and organizing with practiced efficiency. The bell above the door jingled, signaling the arrival of a customer, and I turned to greet them with a polite smile frozen on my face. But when I saw who it was, my heart skipped a beat and then began to race in my chest. Standing in the doorway, looking every bit as handsome and infuriating as the day he left, was Tom, my ex-husband. He had a woman by his side, her arm linked with his, and they were chatting animatedly, oblivious to the storm of emotions raging inside me. For a moment, I was frozen in place, unable to move or speak, my mind reeling with 1,000 thoughts and feelings. Anger, betrayal, hurt. They all surged to the surface, threatening to overwhelm me with their intensity. But beneath it all, there was a glimmer of something else, a spark of defiance, a determination not to let him see how much he still affected me. With a deep breath, I squared my shoulders and forced myself to meet his gaze head-on. "Can I help you?" I asked, my voice steady despite the turmoil churning inside me. Tom's eyes widened in surprise when he saw me, as if he hadn't expected to find me here, of all places. "Anna," he said, his voice faltering slightly. "What are you doing here?" I resisted the urge to roll my eyes at his obvious stupidity. "I work here," I replied coolly, gesturing to the racks of clothes around me. "What about you?" Before he could answer, Signora Bianchi bustled over, her eyes narrowing as she took in the scene before her. "Is there a problem?" she demanded, her voice sharp with suspicion. Tom shifted uncomfortably under her gaze, clearly not expecting to be interrogated by the owner of the shop. "No, no problem at all," he said hastily, flashing a forced smile. "We were just browsing, that's all." But Signora Bianchi wasn't fooled. She could smell trouble from a mile away, and she wasn't about to let it walk out the door without a fight. "Browsing, she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "Well, you can browse somewhere else. This is a place of business, not a playground for lost souls." Tom bristled at her words, his jaw clenching with barely suppressed anger. "Fine," he snapped, grabbing his companion by the arm and pulling her toward the door. "We're leaving." As they walked out of the shop, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction wash over me. For once, Tom had been the one caught off guard, the one left scrambling for words. It was a small victory, to be sure, but it was enough to bolster my spirits and remind me that I was stronger than I had ever realized. And as I turned back to my work, folding and organizing with renewed determination, I knew that no matter what life threw at me next, I would face it head-on, with courage and resilience, knowing that I had survived worse and come out the other side stronger than ever before. In the aftermath of Tom's unexpected visit, a sense of unease lingered in the air, casting a shadow over the shop. But as the days passed and life returned to its usual rhythm, I found myself growing stronger, more resilient in the face of adversity. Working alongside Signora Bianchi became easier with each passing day, our initial animosity melting away to reveal a mutual respect and understanding. She still had her moments of sharpness, of course, but I had learned to take them in stride, to let them roll off me like water off a duck's back. And Marco, bless him, remained a constant source of support and encouragement, his presence a reassuring presence in my life. He never pushed me to talk about what had happened with Tom, never prodded me for details I wasn't ready to share. Instead, he simply offered a listening ear and a shoulder to lean on, a silent anchor in the storm. As Ben's arm healed and his spirits lifted, I found myself daring to hope again, to dream of a future where happiness wasn't just a fleeting illusion, but a tangible reality. Italy had a way of working its magic on you, of weaving its spell until you couldn't help but believe in the possibility of miracles. And maybe, just maybe, there was a miracle waiting for me here, a second chance at love, a fresh start in a place where anything felt possible. I wasn't ready to entertain the thought just yet, not with the wounds of the past still raw and tender. But as I watched the sun set over the horizon, casting the sky ablaze with hues of pink and gold, I allowed myself to imagine what the future might hold. It wouldn't be easy, I knew that much. There would be hurdles to overcome, obstacles to navigate, and heartaches to endure. But I was no stranger to hardship, no stranger to pain. And with Ben by my side, and Marco's unwavering support, I knew that I could weather any storm that came my way. So as I stood there, gazing out at the world stretching out before me, I made a silent vow to seize this second chance with both hands, to embrace the possibilities that lay ahead with an open heart and a fearless spirit. Because in the end, it wasn't about the scars we carried or the battles we'd fought. It was about the strength we found in the midst of adversity, the resilience that carried us through the darkest of nights into the light of a new day. And as I took a deep breath, inhaling the sweet scent of jasmine on the breeze, I knew that no matter what the future held, I was ready to face it head on, with courage, grace, and a quiet determination to live life on my own terms, one day at a time.